Okay then, let's get started. Hello everybody, and welcome to our Xenogenics reports and dashboards training session. My name's Sarah Hill. I'm a Pardot consultant at Xenogenics and also a Salesforce administrator. One of the areas I work in quite often, and something that clients that I work with often need some guidance on, is building reports and dashboards, which is why 30 to 40 minutes overview of, start to finish, how you create reports and dashboards in Salesforce and make sure that they're showing the data that you want to see. So I'll start with reports because obviously a report is the basis of a dashboard, and then we'll move on to the dashboards. If you do have any questions, you can type them in the box. I'm not sure if I'll be able to get through them today because I do have a lot to show you, but type them in anyway, and if I don't get to them by the end, I will follow up with you afterwards. Okay, so what is a Salesforce report? So it's basically a report that's based on criteria that you define that gives you a list of records in your Salesforce org. So you can filter your reports so that you drill down even further and get to see the exact data that you want to see. You can group by field so that you can see summaries, and you can display lovely looking charts. As a lot of your records in Salesforce may only be accessible by certain users, reports and a lot of the information that are held in reports could be confidential to certain people. Accessibility of reports plays a really important role. So Salesforce controls the reports based upon the folders that you save your report in. You create a folder, and a folder can be public, meaning that everyone can see it. It can be hidden, so nobody can see it. You can share it with users or other users with particular roles, or you can also set your reports to be read only or read write. The key thing here though is whenever you run a report in Salesforce, you will only ever be able to see the information that you're entitled to see. So security wise, you're not going to see things that you're not supposed to just because they're on the report. So if you do have private records, the same report might look different to me as it would to my manager. I've just had a question that says, is this session relevant if we're on Classic that's come in? I am going to be creating the reports in Lightning, in the Lightning Report Builder. So if the principles are very much the same, but I will be using Lightning Report Builder today. Okay, so anyone who's been on any of my training sessions before will know that I'm always banging on about the benefits of planning before we take any actions within Salesforce. It's really important as ever when it comes to reporting, because only by planning and thinking about what you want to see are you going to get the data out that you require. So really, I will go into what a report type is in a minute, but what you're thinking about when you're thinking about your report type is what object and related objects in Salesforce do you want to report on. So your objects are things such as your accounts, your leads, your contacts, your opportunities. So it's really key to know right before you start, and it's the first thing you'll need to think about is, if you want a leads report or you want an opportunities report, because that will give you the records that are related to those objects. You also need to think about whose records you want to see, who owns the records you want to see, do you have access to the record you want to see, and what timeframes do you want to show. You know, you can show your timeframes for all time, current year, calendar year, financial years, quarters, months. So it's really key to consider that before you start creating your report. Have a think about, do you want to group your data by any fields? For example, do you want to see all of your leads grouped by lead source so that you know where your leads are coming from? Have you got any numerical fields in your data that you need to see the totals of? And also, are there any additional filters? So do you need to drill down any further or leave out certain records for any reason? For example, if I'm doing a leads report, I might filter out any leads that have been set to bins, basically leads that have been set to delete. So this planning is really, and thinking about your reports is what's really going to make sure that you see the right and relevant data when you start building. So one of the key things to know, and as I just mentioned, is what a report type is. So it's basically a template that makes your reporting easier, but it determines which fields and records are available when you are creating your report. For example, an opportunities report would only show you the records that are opportunity records, and it would give you fields like amount, stage, type, opportunity, value, any of your fields that are on your opportunity object in Salesforce. There are a number of custom reports, standard reports, set up in Salesforce. And it is possible, if you haven't got the report type that you want, to set up custom report types. I'm not going to go into that today because it's quite advanced and it takes a little while. But you can do it, and you can Google it, or you can talk to someone at Xenogenics if you need any help with creating custom report types. Okay, so let's jump in Salesforce and have a little look at building a report. So the first thing we need to do is navigate across to our reports tab. So as you can see here, I'm in the sales app in this demo org, and reports is typically one of our tabs that's available in the sales app. So we can click on that there, or we can click on our selector and we can type in reports, and we'll get to our reports tab from there. So when we're looking at creating a new report, we just simply click on new report. That bit's easy, and this is where we get to choose what our report type is. So there are a couple of things that I did want to touch on here, which are quite important when selecting your report type. So one of the things is when you have a selection that's contacts and accounts versus accounts with contact roles. So you might think that that would give you the same information, but it won't. So what a contacts and accounts report type would give you is a report that has all of your contact records and all of your accounts, and all of your contact fields and all of your account fields that are held in Salesforce. That's because there's an and there. If you used accounts with contact roles, what you're going to see there is only the accounts that have contact roles attached to them. So if you were to run a report there, you would only see those specific accounts. So if you had an account that didn't have a contact role, you wouldn't see that on the report. So those records wouldn't show up when you run your report. So it's kind of important here to make sure you're selecting the right report type, because it will define the records that you see. Okay, so let's jump in. Let's create an opportunity report. So we're going to click continue. And as we can see here, what we've got is a preview pane in the middle. This is called the Lightning App Builder. It gives us a preview pane, and this just shows us a selection of the records that meet the criteria. what we're given here when we go onto this first page is basically the default opportunities report. So it's already got the default setup, and depending on what report type you select, will show you a different setup when you come through to this screen. So different columns and different default filters. So what we can do here, firstly, is have a look at the columns that we've got. So we can see them on the top of the preview pane here, and it's giving us amount, age, close date, all of that kind of thing. And we can also see our columns down here. So if we wanted to remove, let's say I want to remove age, I'm going to simply click on there, and it has removed age from our columns. We might want to remove a few more, opportunity owner role, that kind of thing. So you can choose which columns you wish to see in your report. And that's if you want to create a table of reports, or also if you want to filter on any of your columns. Now, there might be a couple of columns that I want to add in that aren't already in there. So what I can do is either type in the column name here, or I can look at a list of all of the fields. If I toggle over into the fields section on the left, I can see a list of all of the fields that are available to me in this report type. So we've got opportunity fields, we've got the opportunity owner, and also account fields that we can use as columns in this opportunity. So let's take one of those. We're going to pick it up and drag it over into here, and that will then add that into our report. Okay, so once I'm happy with the columns I want to see, the next step really is to look at what filters we've got on our report. So this is starting to drill down and make the report show me the data that I want to see. So these are the default filters that come with an opportunities report. So what I'm going to ask it or have a look at first is what opportunities I want to see. So it's default set to all opportunities in this case. And I've got someone default set to all opportunities in this case, but we can change it to just see my opportunities, team's opportunities, or we can also filter by role. But for this case, I'll leave it at all opportunities. I can also look here and change the date range that I want to see. So we can do it by close date, or we can use any of the date fields that are available in the report type. So we've got opportunity date fields and also account date fields that we can use. So we might want to change that to the created date. So that's then looking at the date that the opportunity was created. Okay. What we can also do is look at the range of the dates. So we can use an all time. So we're looking at all of our, we're looking at created date, and we're then going to look at all time. We can use fiscal year, calendar year, quarters, months, days. We can have date ranges. So it's really flexible in what date fields we're going to show. Okay, so let's go all opportunities, all time. So as you can see, it's given me a load more now because I've changed from one time period to a shorter time period. The other two fields that we've got that are default on an opportunities report are the status. So we can change our status from open, closed, closed one, or any. So if I just wanted to see all of my closed records, then I'd just click on closed there. We'll leave that at any. And we can also look at probability. So a probability is more than 90%, or we can look at less than as well. But this isn't really tailored, and it's not really showing me what I want to see. What I want to see is just my opportunities that are for a particular lead source, for example. So what I'm going to do here is find my field. So I can either type it in at the top or scroll down to it, and here I'm going to look at lead source. So we click on lead source, and as lead source is a pick list field, I can select which pick list values I want to include in my report. So if I wanted to just see opportunities for all time with all statuses that have come from the website and the phone, then I would select that and click apply, and it will filter my report again. So what I also might want to do is add in another filter. Let's say I can see the amount field there. So we're going to look at, actually let's do stage. So we're going to say anyone with the stage of closed one, because most of ours here are closed one. It's another pick list, and we're going to click apply. So as you can see, it's filtered down even more, but there might be times where what I want to see is more information than this, and what we can add is filter logic. So click back onto that, sorry. What filter logic will do is if we've just added in 2 filters, so we've added in that we want to show our lead source and that we want to show a particular stage, but what we might want to show is the website and phone lead sources, or that they have a stage of closed one. So we can simply change this here to all, apply, and that is now showing us any of our opportunities that are at the stage closed one and any that have a lead source of web and phone inquiry. So it's quite straightforward. You put in your filters, think about what you're putting in there. I've had a couple of questions, so this seems an obvious place to have a look. I will be recording the session, so that you will get a recording of this sent out this afternoon, is the first question I've been asked. And I've also been asked, can you change the order of your columns? And that's quite easy. All you do is pick it up, drag it up there, and it will show you in move your column over. You can put them wherever you like. Okay, so we've got our report. We're quite happy with our report, but this seems a really good time to save it, because sometimes I have been known to click off a report that I'm creating and I will lose all of my work and I get a little bit upset. So we're going to click save on here, and what we do is we can type in our title. It will give it a unique name. That's what Salesforce will provide when you click off the title. And you can also add a description in here if you wish. So the key thing on this screen is this is where we are going to select the folder which the report goes into. So I'm going to click select folder, and as you can see, you can select private reports. So that means only you will ever see it, and you can't share a report if it's in a private folder. No one will be able to see it. Or you can select your public reports, and if you select public reports, there's no subfolders. So let me have a look at my folders. I've created a folder for today, which is leads reports for training, and we're going to put it in there. I'll show you sharing this folder later on and how people get to see that. So we've saved our report and we've now run our report. And we can see here we've got 35 records, and it gives us a list of all of the records that meet the criteria that we have set. Okay, so what we can do at this point is we can decide that what we want to do, because it's all just basic information kind of chucked in there, is group our records. So we might want to group, let's say, I know we always go back to lead source because I'm a marketing person. I might want to group by lead source. So if I click on this little down arrow on the column and select group rows by this field, it will then group all of the records that relate to that lead source all together. So we've got all of our web ones, all of our inquiry ones, etc., etc. As we have now grouped, it opens up this add to chart button up the top. So the reason you can't add to chart when it's your basic information before you grouped anything is because you're not telling Salesforce what you want to see on your chart. So all it can show you is a table because you're not showing it what criteria that you've used. So as I've now selected lead source, what I'm telling Salesforce is what I want to see is this data by lead source. So I want to see all of my opportunities that meet my criteria by lead source. So that allows it to be able to create a chart. So we click on the chart up the top and it gives us a little chart at the top of our table. So what we can do is select on the cog here and we can change our chart. So we can have another column chart, we can have a funnel chart, and there's a few little things here that we can change, like we can select to show values or percentages. So we can start to see right within the report, you know, a visual representation of the data that we've got in that report. So what we might want to do, if we come out of this, edit, go back to our edit screen. At any point, if you've run your report and you're not getting the data you want to see, or you want to change any of your fields, or you want to change any of your columns, you can just go back to edit and you'll come back to this screen. So one thing that we can do is we could group it even further. So we've grouped by lead source, but we might want to group again by, let's say, stage. So what we can do is go over to here, which is where our grouping section of the Lightning Builder, and we can type in here, let's say, we'll do stage for now. So we click on stage. That has now grouped our data by lead source and then by stage. So we can see, you know, all of our leads that are phone inquiry and all of our leads that are closed won. So that's something that's quite useful. So you can really start chopping and looking at your data, how you need to see it. But what you might want to do if you just want to see a count, so you don't need to see all of this detail here, is you can drag your grouped by rows and you can actually group it by a column. So you can move that down. And then what that's going to give us here, and it's a bit difficult to see because it's in a tiny little box. Let's run this and see if we can see it any better. It's not giving it us there. What we can see here is all of our lead source by stage, and we can see the counts here. So we can see there's 3 phone inquiry lead sources that are at closed won. And then this also gives us our totals. Okay, let's move that back up there. Let's turn it off. There's also a couple of options here. So we can look across the bottom here. We can turn off the detail, and that just give us a basic count of here we've got how many records are at each lead source. Back on. We can also turn off or on our subtitles, although we haven't got any subtotals going here, and we can turn on or off our grand totals if we've got any going. So really, that's how you create a report in Salesforce. Save and run it every time you make a change, because it won't remember your changes otherwise. Okay, so once you're happy with your report, that's your report created. What you might want to do is subscribe to a report. So one of the things you can do from once you've run your report is click on the drop down here and select to subscribe. So what this means is that you can get sent your report either daily, weekly or monthly, depending on what you select, on whatever day of the week at whatever time. And you'll get that sent to you by email. You can also add conditions, so that what you would get is if you're, you know, here I've got 35 records on here. So you might want to say, if I get 50 records on here, then I want it emailed to me. So I would simply put 50 on there, and then you'd get an email whenever you it hits this condition. You can opt to have a summary and a report, or just a summary. You can email it to yourself, or you can email it to another user or somebody with another role in your organization. And you can also select here to run the report as yourself, or to run it as someone else in your org. So you might want to select to run it as your manager, for example, and get the data that they see. So once we're happy with that, other options that we can do are, once we've got a report, we can export it by clicking on the box here and coming down to export. If you do that, that will give you basically a Excel document with all of your records in. We could delete the report if we wanted to, and we can also add to dashboard straight from the report. And what we'll do there is, if you click on that, you can either create a whole new dashboard, or you can add this chart to a dashboard that you have already created. So I was going to just go over sharing the folder in which the report is in, so that you can share your report with your colleagues. So the way we would do that is go back over to the reports tab here. And as you can see here, we've got our reports, and then we've got folders down here. So I'll click on all folders, and that gives us the latest folders we've got. And here I've got Leads Report for Training, which is the folder that I've put up for this purpose. Click on the drop down, and then that allows me to click share, to share it with colleagues. So I can either pick specific users, I can pick a role in my organization. So if you have a marketing role, you can share it with all the people that are assigned to a marketing role. You can click roles and subordinates. So if you had a role that was your marketing manager, that would share it with your marketing manager, your marketing executive, and your marketing assistant, for example. Or you can share it with any public groups that have been set up. So let's go for a role here. Choose a COO, and what you can give them is access to view, edit, or manage this folder. So that would be, if you have 10 reports in there, they'd be able to view, edit, or manage all of those reports in that folder. So we'll give him view access, share. And then we have, at the bottom, we can see exactly who's got access to this report. So if we want to stop Jason having access to it, we can stop sharing with him, and then he comes off the list. Okay, so that's basically how you share reports and how you create reports. I have a few questions coming in to have a look. Gary has asked, how do you ungroup the column? Okay, I'll just quickly go back into one of my reports here. If we're on the edit screen, the best way I've found of ungrouping the column is simply by clicking on this remove. So if I've grouped a column, I can't delete the grouping of roles until I've deleted the grouping of columns. So you simply just click on there, and there your grouping is gone. Okay, so I'm going to quickly jump back into the PowerPoint because we're going to move on seamlessly to talking about dashboards. So what is a dashboard? So it's basically a visual display of the key metrics. I'm sure if you're a Salesforce user, you will definitely have seen a dashboard in your time. For each dashboard, component on a dashboard, which is basically a chart or a table or a count, there will be one report that component relates to. You can make more than one component on a dashboard from a report, but each component has to relate to a report. So you can have 20 components per dashboard. So, you know, you can fit quite a lot onto there. And what a dashboard really does is help you see the key trends, the key impact of your marketing activity or impact of your sales activity in one place. And it's an amazing way to really show people in your organization what's going on. Again, always for the planning. Planning is really key with a dashboard. Just have a think about why you're doing the dashboard and who needs to see it. You know, how much data you want to include, what's the time period, what types of charts do you want to see? Do you want to see bar charts? Do you want to see donut charts? And just have a little think about that. But actually building a dashboard, once you've got your report sorted out, building your dashboard is actually pretty simple. So let's have a look at that now. So we were still in our reports tab. So what we're going to do is find our tab for dashboards. It is usually in your sales org. But again, if you can't find it, you can go on the drop down there and search for it. So dashboards, do we want to discard that report? So now we're on our dashboards screen. To create a dashboard, it's as easy as clicking on new dashboard. And we can type in a name here, box dash, and a description if we want to. You know, that's often good so your colleagues know what the purpose of the dashboard is. Again, one of the really important steps is selecting and putting this in the right folder. So knowing who has access to your folders. We'll just put this one in public dashboards for now. That means everyone's going to be able to see it. Okay, so that brings us to Dashboard Builder. Not a lot to see yet, obviously. So what we're going to do first is just simply add a component. When you click on add a component, that'll come up with all the reports you've created and the folders that contain the reports that you've created. So that's why it's so key to get the reports that you need first, because this is exactly what you need to start creating. So let's say for now, what I want to look at firstly on my dashboard is how many leads I've been creating by month. I'm going to select that. As this report, I think it does, yeah, as this report already has the chart built into it, and we already built it, I built a chart in when I created this report. What we can do as an option is select use chart settings from report, and it will just show you on your dashboard exactly what you have as your chart in your report. So if you've already done the work and you've already edited it to show what you want, that's pretty easy just to do that. If you don't want to do that, or you haven't already created a report, what we can do here is select what kind of graph we want to see. Some of them are grayed out here, and that's because these are specific kinds of graphs that relate to data that has been sorted by column and row. But we can select through some of these and we can have a look and see all of the different kinds of components that we can make out of this data. So let's go for a bar chart for the first one. I realised that I've got leads by month and I've got it by quarter. That's because I was playing around with it earlier on. And we can also make some additional changes here. So we can show the values or take the values off. We can change the range of the y-axis. We can sort it in a different way. So we can have it in order by record count or by the date. We can add titles, subtitles, footers. And the final thing we can do is either have it looking like this, like a light, or we can have it dark on the background. And let's stick with light. So once we've done it, that simply puts our chart into our dashboard, and we can resize this as we need to. And when you get more in there, you can move them around. Okay, so let's add another component here. Let's look at an opportunity lead source report next, I think. So we're going to select that. Obviously, if I was doing this for real, I'd have planned this out a lot better and I'd have known exactly what I was putting everywhere. So for an opportunity lead source, what we might want to run is, let's say, a donut chart. And so that gives us basically a pie chart, but with a total in the middle. And we can select to show the values or take the values off, show the total, take the total off. So if you can see, that's appearing and disappearing in there. And make the similar sort of changes as what we can with another, the other component we've added in. That gives us that, and we can just simply pick it up and drag it over, and it'll give us another component in our dashboard. Let's go for something else. Let's select on that report there. And what we can do is add a count, and that simply gives us the number of records that are in this report. So you might want to say, this would basically showing us how many opportunities there have been. So we can add that in, and that gives us another component there. Might want to make that a bit bigger. What we can also do, one of the components that I really like on here is, let's have a look at converted leads. This is another thing I've created, is this gauge. So this is quite a cool little feature that will show us how we're proceeding towards a goal that we have set. So let's say in our org, and if we scroll down here, we can make changes to this. In our business, we really want to be converting, let's say, 20 leads. So what we can change here, we can change this 100. So if you're looking at red, amber and green, and 20 leads is our target, we can add our 20 there. So we might think it's quite good if we're between, let's say, 15 and 20, that's our green. And let's say our middle range that we're kind of happy with would be 10. But if we're below 10, then it's red. We're not happy if we're below 10. So then, as you can see, that's kind of changed our gauge there. So we can have a look where we're progressing towards our total. And it's totally up to you how big or small you make those sections. We're going to add that in. So we've got another component coming on here. Let's add one more, and let's do let me show you how to do a table. So if we click on this bottom one here, we can simply add a table. So we might want to use that if we wanted to look at all of the latest leads that have come in, or all of the latest opportunities. So there we go. So as you can see, we've kind of, I'll save that. And if I click done, we can see that we've, just like that, we've created a dashboard. So you can really play around with this, play around with all of the different components that you can add in. But, you know, you can really show on these dashboards exactly what you want to see. Again, what we can do once we're happy with our dashboard and it's showing us what we want is we can subscribe to it. So again, we can say we want it emailed or refreshed, daily, weekly, monthly, day of the week, time. So a dashboard doesn't refresh unless you click refresh, unless you've set a time for it to refresh. So each time you go into Salesforce and you visit your dashboard, you can either set in this way how often you want it to refresh. So you could say, oh, we have our weekly meeting on a Friday, so I'm going to set this dashboard to refresh on Friday morning, so I know when I'm going into my meeting that it's the most up-to-date data. And we can also ask for it to be, I'm going to get it emailed to myself on Thursday night, so I can just check through it, so I know the details when I'm going into my meeting on Friday. So we can choose to send it to different users. and we can add other people into that subscription as well. Okay, so once you click save, Salesforce does the rest. So as you can see, actually, hopefully I've shown that creating the dashboard, once you've got the right data in there, creating the dashboard itself is pretty straightforward, and you can really play around with it and get to know it, so you can show what you need to see. Okay, let's really quickly jump back into the slides. Just a little summary to finish on. All of your data in Salesforce can be reported on, but you will only be seeing data that you've got access to. All of your reports and dashboards are governed by the folder that they are stored in. So people will only ever see reports or dashboards that are in folders that have been shared with them. If you are trying to create folders to add your reports or dashboards in, not everyone can create a public folder. So there might come a time that you'd have to contact your Salesforce administrator and say, I need a public folder, I need to share this dashboard with someone and I can't create one. Could you give me that permission, or could you create the folder for me? So yeah, and your access to your dashboard is again governed by the folder that it's stored in. Okay, so let me just check, because I know I've had a couple of questions coming in. I don't know if I'll be able to answer them today. I think I'll have to. I've got a couple more in there, but I think they're things that I'll need to follow up with people individually. So hopefully that's been useful. Go out there, have a go, build some reports, get some great looking dashboards going, give it a try. I mean, that's how you really learn, by trying it out, a bit of trial and error. We have one more webinar set up and probably some more to come for May, but the one next week is going to be, actually not me, thankfully, it's my colleague Alex, and he's going to be showing how to manage employee time off and sickness in Salesforce, and that's something that we do internally. So if you're interested and you're not already doing that, then sign up for that webinar. Thanks everyone so much for your time, and thanks for listening, and I shall speak to you all soon.